This is a job I wasn't hoping to do. Transit Mk6 gear selector. When you're selecting gears, you've got your cables that run to these arms, and then what happens is this shaft runs through the middle with all, you know, and when you change gear, it drops it into whichever your gear you want on there, and that takes you into reverse gear at the top. And for reverse gear, you have this rod that runs through the middle has to slide up and down on a bearing, and I don't know whether you can see inside there. Put some light in it. All the bearing has collapsed. All that little roller bearing inside totally collapsed. Now what happens is with that bearing, it's not only do the ball bearings roll round and round, it also, I'll show you on the new one. Yep, there's the new bearing. You see the bearings in it. You turn it over, those bearings actually move up and down along the shaft. And what happens is, when they start to wear out and rust, that will not slide up and down, making it difficult for you to change gear. And I thought it was the cables. I put all new cables on it, and it wasn't. It's here. You can see the damage it's done on here as well. Totally scored that. So that's going to have to be cleaned up. So this is had a pre-wash. I've just washed all this out. I'm going to clean that up. Everything's clean now. Remove that bearing. Press that bearing out the centre, and from the top, and the seal, and we'll press the new bearing in, and a new seal, grease it, etc, etc, and hopefully it should then change a gear. I was having problems with third crunching all the time, reverse not being able to get it some of the time. But if I could, when you can't get reverse, all I was doing was just going back into first, second, third, fourth, then reverse. Then you'd be able to get it once the shaft moved up and down. Not a job I was hoping to do. Another thing, when it's actually fitted in situ on the top of the gearbox, like so, the bolts that run through it, I know a lot of people have said they've had trouble getting this one out. It's right behind the engine mounting. A top tip for you, you can feel it, but it's difficult to get a socket on it with an extension bar. And what I did, I placed a mirror at the side of the engine, a small mirror with a light shining onto it, and then I could see exactly where that bolt was, so I didn't have to struggle. And then I've got a wobble. And what a lot of them do, they put a 10mm socket on it and a wobble bar and an extension bar. But I found when you put your socket on and your wobble bar and the extension, you've still not got much room to rotate it, to undo it. Luckily, at the back of my toolbox, I found a 10mm socket that was a wobble socket. It already got the built-in wobble bar on it, which I used, but you'll only be able to crack it off in a couple of turns, because you won't be able to come up with your socket because it will hit the engine mounting on the driver's side. So what I did then is took it off, hit it with some WD-40, and then rotated it by hand. So yeah, not as bad a job as I thought it was going to be. I hate gearboxes. So we'll clean it up, put it back together.